Hello, everybody. We are live. It is the 3rd of August, 2026. I'm Joe, aka the Stoic Viking, and today we're going to be covering. Apparently, misjudged where my camera was. All right, that's fine. Anyways, so today's live is we're going to be recapping some of the subjects that we went over the video, some other stuff that's going on, and but it should be pretty short. I think Monday lives are going to be more of kind of recap and Q&A of the videos that I do because they usually come out on Saturday. So, but we're going to get into this. So, first and foremost, so we did 2 videos last week. So one was a reaction that I did to DJ Shipley and Annie Stumpf that they did, and they specifically talked about mental health. And anybody who's been following me for long enough knows that mental health is probably my main focus of maybe not recent content, but that's like what I eventually want the channel to be mostly about. Obviously, I gotta have to make content about other things in order to build the channel, but we try to do it in a way where whenever I can, I want to focus on the stuff that people are really talking about, and specifically the mental health. So it was, one, I don't know DJ Shipley personally. I know of him. I've heard many things about his reputation, and I know a lot of people will talk shit about him being a deadbeat father and relationships and everything like that. None of that means anything to me personally when it comes to this subject, right? The conversation is not like, for example, if he starts talking about positive things when it comes to mental health and people come into the comments and are like, totally don't even have a discussion about what was said in the video because the subject is greater than the people who are even talking about it. And your only comment is, well, he's a deadbeat dad. Like, who gives a flying fuck, right? Like, if this man is trying to get out here and give a positive message, like, some of you people just need to get off your own shit, I swear to God, right? Because, like, it's, and you got to think about it. Like, why does someone even do that, right? Like, why are you, is it's more of a reflection of the person who's maybe the comments. At the end of the day, you don't really give a shit about what other people say or what people think, but I think it's just more of a highlighting for people. If you're the type of person, when we're talking about a subject like that and you come into comments and you're just like, oh, he's a deadbeat dad and that's it, right? Bro, you need to look inwards to yourself about what's really going on and why you're lashing out at other people, right? So, anyways, I digress. So, I really like the fact that I was surprised because I knew that he had went through some struggles, but I'm really surprised that he was able to come out and have a very candid conversation with Andy Stumpf. And I believe that Andy Stumpf is one of the best guys in the YouTube space as far as like military content creators goes, because one, he's super analytical. He says exactly what is on his mind. He's not afraid to say he doesn't know something, and he's not really into the tinfoil hat shit, which, as we know, we were all about that shit. So, all right, what's up, everybody? Hey, thank you for it. Was I enjoyed talking to you as well. Should I join CAG, dude? That is a question that is completely upon yourself. If you want to give it a shot, give it a shot. I can't tell you what can or cannot be. I don't know what's going on in your life, but if there's something that you want to try it, if you want to go to Delta Force, then go down that path. Go do it, right? It's because they put people on a pedestal. Yeah, absolutely. And they put people on pedestals in multiple ways, both positive ways and negative ways, right? There are people out there, and I'm sure there's people who even look at me and are like, it doesn't matter what I say, no matter what great things I can do, they'll be like, no, fuck that guy, right? For example, let's talk about Trump derangement syndrome, right? You can like him or you don't like him, whatever it is, right? If the man does something good, awesome. But I know there are people out the world in this world, and this same good goes for Biden, right? There are people in this world who, if Trump, who had cured cancer, there are people like, well, fuck Trump. And what did cancer do to him, right? And I'm pretty sure there are people on the right who, if someone from the left did it, like if it was Obama or something, there were people who go on the right who'd be like, fuck you, you know, like it's just, there's people are like that, unfortunately, right? But why are people like that? It really comes down to like, what is going on in their own thing. These are their own insecurities that are being projected, right? Why do you lash out to some random stranger on the internet, other than the fact that, maybe somebody's giving information and it's really bringing out people's insecurities. And then they feel they have to lash out at this stranger because what little power they have is they can get on the computer and type like a fucking keyboard warrior. And, and that's why, like, when I comments, like I might engage with a couple people. I don't really engage that much anymore. But when I do, and if it's somebody who's really negative, I will just legitimately like, bro, are you okay? Do you need to talk to somebody? Like, I hope whatever you're dealing with, you figure that out and get the help that you need, because this is really more about you. And I don't think people really realize that this shit speaks more about you than it does about me or the people you're talking about. So it is what it is. Hey, Lewis, thanks you. I appreciate you, brother. That's awesome, man. Yeah, we started just about a year ago, and because I choose not to do clickbaity content, and I keep using the term tinfoil hat content, which I know would get views, would go viral, not for the good reasons. I've chose to try to do this channel with as much integrity as possible. Because of it, we're growing slowly, but we're growing. That's Mr. Wolfsy, how do you offer one-on-one mentorship? So if you go into my link, whether it's on Instagram, YouTube, in the bio, TikTok, Instagram, even X, in the link of the bio, there's a one-on-one consultation. I think it's like Tier Fitness One Coaching, where I go on and we will have a conversation about what are something that you need to look on. And I'll get you honest, like there's a lot of people who come on, some people come on with the interest of doing the follow-on, like month-to-month coach training. But I would honestly say a good portion, people just want to have a good, candid conversation for 30 minutes about just some things. Because honestly, I think there's people here who were in the chat who were a part of these conversations, that some of these mentorship that I've done, is there maybe 30 minutes is all you need to help, maybe to get some perspective, or help to get an opinion, or maybe help you to put you in the right direction, and I will give you the no bullshit thoughts, answers. And obviously it's based off of my experience, what wisdom that I have in my life that I've accrued, and we figure it out. We at the end of the day, you pick it. You're not going to know everything. You're going to make a choice. You're going to go in that direction, and you're going to see how it shakes out. All right. And you're going to learn the process. And that's what it is, right? You don't know everything, and you never will. So for someone going through ANS for ISA, what would you just say to focus on? Physicality, short-term memory, land nav. Okay. It's a very good question, Nick. So if you're going to ISA selection, right? ISA selection is very similar to Deltas. The one good thing is the area, the terrain, the location of the country that it is located in. The land nav in this area is considerably easier than West Virginia, right? So you're going to be moving long distances. You are going to be moving a lot, like you would in Delta, like 20 miles a day, culminating in our walk is the short walk, and it's not, it's not 40 miles, but it's on the way there, right? But you move a lot. Just plan on, for a good portion of selection, moving almost 20 miles a day, right? So that's being able to move that long. You need a couple things. One, you need to be able to, your body needs to be built to carry weight and move with weight, but your feet need to be prepared for that type of movement. And it's also your legs in general. Like, for example, most people who start rucking and who try to do it too quickly and do the train up too quickly, you're going to get shin splints, and you're going to get your feet are going to get beat up. And then when you do that and you do too quickly, you're going to derail your training program. So rucking is the majority of these tier 1 selections, especially Delta and ISA. So concentrate on that. And then the biggest part that I think that people mess up with or struggle on is because the entire selection, about 95% of it, is solo. And you're given instructions maybe once, and then you don't know the standards. You have to go out and do it. And when you finish, you have no idea whether or not you passed, failed for that event. The only time that you do is if you just randomly just whisked off away, and that's the only way you know that you even failed. So why I say that, right, and why this affects people is because a lot of people have relied on so many other people, or this negative or positive reinforcement within these types of selections, or even within their life. And when they're without that, you have to really rely completely on yourself and your own self-confidence. And you would be surprised how many people struggle with that. So being able to ruck, move 20 miles a day with 65 pounds on your back every single day, day in and day out, and then be able to do everything by yourself and have that confidence to, no matter what happens, that you're going to make the best decision, and then just see that decision through, if that makes sense. So, absolutely, and that's the thing is you gotta look. Nobody's perfect, right? I'm not. I've definitely made mess ups, right? And the one thing that I will say about DJ Shipley, right, is that he has messed up and he owns it, right? I've made mistakes and I own it. And I think that's the most important part. And I think that's one of the issues that we're having with some of these content creators who are maybe a little lying, doing all these different things. They're not really owning up. Like we saw if you guys saw the video with Tim Kennedy, where he's getting interviewed by the comedian, like he owns up to it, sort of, right? So I think that was like the stuff that he does own up for, like of, hey, telling fish tales and all sort of thing. That's good, right? But I don't think he owned up to everything. And look, just at the end of the day, don't fucking lie. And then be honest with the shit that you fucking fuck up. Because look, that's the shit that people learn the most from you. If you're going to be a value add on YouTube, whatever social media, fucking tell people about the shit that you fucked up, right? Because that's more relatable instead of trying to portray this like, hey, I'm fucking perfect, right? Because one, that's fucking false. Nobody's fucking perfect, right? But success that's built upon failures is more solid than success that wasn't built on failures, because it's more volatile. It's more, more luck was involved. And I guarantee you shit will eventually happen. And if you've never experienced failure, like I didn't really experience failure until my mid-30s, which is why I spiraled so bad and I almost took my own life. So this is a lesson for everybody. So that's why I talk about my fuck ups. So, have you seen the new Size and Alliance? What do you think? I believe they are portrayed as being outside. So I'll be honest, I have not seen The Lioness yet. It is actually on my to watch list. You know what? This is the people have brought this up before. I will watch it this week. Basically. I appreciate that. I definitely need to watch it because I hear good things, but we will see how it is. Hey, well, I appreciate it. I figured we needed to give some love to our brothers across the pond, and we talk so much about American Special Operations and everything like that. And I obviously the British system is so different, but it's also it's effective in its own way for as small as the budget that they have. You know, you have to give them kudos to the fact that they work with what they can in their situation, which is not exactly the greatest, and they do what they can. Yeah. Hey, I appreciate that, brother. Thank you for saying that. So, yeah, eventually I will put some of these testimonials that some of these guys who I've done testimonial calls with, and I do some of the monthly coaching with. And it's you know, it's gone pretty well so far. So I honestly I enjoy these conversations that I have with people, right? I just get so much out of trying to add value to people's lives and just like mentor people so they don't have to deal with the bullshit that I went through. So I get a lot out of it, to be honest, right? And the Shawn Ryan show, I honestly, bro, I don't think I'm as interesting as some of these other people, and I don't surround myself with as much controversy, right? And I'm not coming out here and telling crazy war stories. So I may not be the best person that they normally want to get up on the Shawn Ryan show. So it would be cool one day, you know. I just like to talk, you know, get the message out there, help people physically, mentally, you know, our brothers and sisters, and you know, it is what it is. So yeah. Yeah, Tim Kennedy already had a good career and helped the regiment in terms of advertisement, but he flew too high and crashed. Look, you can get carried away. We've all done this, right? We've all at some point in our life had some level of success and then got the fuck carried away. I know that I have, right? And I will tell you guys that luckily I have went through that stuff kind of enough to when I started this social media as more of a mature adult who's been through some of that bullshit. I, on a daily basis, have a bit of some mental exercises that I remind myself to not get carried away with, like some of the money that comes in or some of the you know, like, hey, I've got so many more subscribers, or I've got a new brand deal. I have to remember, what is the purpose of this channel? What is the purpose of everything that we're doing? And that is to be of service to other people, add value to other people's lives. And that's what that's the gold standard of any content that I put out. Does it help anybody? Does it help to inform somebody? Does it help to add value to their life? If that's it and it helps one person, cool, job done, right? And sometimes, I will be honest, it's easy to get carried away. It's easy to lose thought of that and concentrate. Oh, it's like, oh, this video got 22,000 views. This one only got 5,000 views. You know, what do I need to do, right? What kind of content does the best, right? Obviously, you need to play the game a little bit to kind of like take the content that I want to put out, but also craft it in a way that it helps it to work within these algorithms that, you know, in order to get reach, in order to get more people involved, and so we can spread the message. And that is essentially, that is the end goal. So, hey, look, you know what's funny about that, right? Because before all the crazy shit about Tim Kennedy came out, about like the shit he didn't do and the shit that he exaggerated, like Tim Kennedy had a good story, right? You know, he's Green Beret, he was fighting on the side. You know, there's a lot of things, but I think he got carried away with his own image, right? And I think he's starting to admit that, which is good. But just, you know, the more people own up to shit, the more human you look, like the more relatable you are. That's the people who I think do the best within content are the people who are the most relatable, right? And I think that's one of the reasons why DJ Shipley, you can come out and say he's a deadbeat dad, but you know, he admits the shit where he fucked up. He admits how he cheated on his wife and all these different things, right? If I mess up, and if I'm probably going to mess up something in the future, I'm going to fucking own it, right? I'm going to tell you my thought processes, right? Why I did it, why I'm a fucking idiot. Because I am, to be honest. I've just been an idiot enough and I usually don't make the same mistake twice. So I've made enough mistakes that I don't make as many mistakes. So if that makes sense. So you should become friends with Valhalla VFT and co-stream with those guys. They talk a little bit more about pop culture along with Piatolics, just mostly geopolitics. Well, Valhalla actually was one of the first people who I had a conversation with when I started YouTube about how to do YouTube, because I was brand new. I think I had like my first video had sort of went viral, and I was getting I went from like 300 subscribers to like 5,000 in like 2 months. And I had a conversation with Valhalla VFT, and yeah, he told me like his strategy, right? He told me about, he likes to do the content that gets views, gets clicks. And he's like, and he openly admitted it, right? Like he does very, and that, which completely makes sense, right? I think that his content and mine, like I would love to have a conversation with him one day online or something like that. But I think we have two different styles of content. But would love to, like, I just enjoy talking to people. Enjoyed my conversations with Brent Tucker, Mike Ritland, the F&G guys, Jack Murphy. And if you guys haven't really checked out Ethan Nagel from the Into the Breach podcast, that dude is such a good dude, and he's also growing his channel. And for a small of a channel but how good his cinematography is, and he's a very good interviewer, just an awesome guy. If you haven't checked out Ethan Nagel Into the Breach podcast, he's just, he's one of those guys, because he doesn't technically like a special operations guy. I don't think he gets as much clout, but for somebody who's doing the work, and he's a content creator who's military, a Marine sniper. He's definitely some of those dudes. You are the Dos Equis man of the army. You're so close to blowing up a gun Bible. I appreciate that, brother. One, I always appreciated the Dos Equis commercials and The World's Most Interesting Man. Thought that I always love those little, cool little quips, almost like Chuck Norris is, right? Chuck Norris-ish, right? And they got a MARSOC guy, Ben Pappas, and a Navy SEAL like Jack Swag, and 24th STAS guy, Aaron Love. Yeah, I saw that. Like, I actually, I really enjoy watching Ben Pappas talk. I think he's extremely intelligent, very well spoken, and definitely, he's definitely one of the more intellectual people within these spaces, if you will. So, and I don't think I've really seen the Aaron Love stuff. I've seen the Jack Swag stuff, but yeah. So it's, hey, we get it. Just try to own up to it, right? And it's easy, right? Little white lie, who's gonna know? But dude, you're on the internet. People are gonna find out. There's a Freedom of Information Act. If someone wants to go on and pull my DD 214 and check the deployments they can go fucking do that, right? And that's why I don't lie about my career, and that's why I don't lie about my deployments. And it's just, people can find out whatever you want, right? Could an 18 Echo do the job of the Sade if he had to? Yeah. So Sades and 18 Echoes, right? An 18 Echo would probably, if someone on the SF team had to learn the equipment and learn the capabilities and sort of like how to do the Sade job, the 18 Echo would probably be the most equipped for it, just because a lot of what goes on in SIGINT is, dealing with RF energy, and 18 Echoes are the most well-versed in RF energy and how it works. So the 18 Echo would be the best person within an SF team to learn how to do a Sade job. Did you work in Syria, and what was it like during their was it like there during the ISIS era? I'm gonna be honest, it was kind of so everything from 2014 on was kind of nuts because ISIS blew up, they invaded Iraq. Me and a team of ISA guys alongside one troop of Delta guys were like the first Americans back in. And we were doing operations all over the place from Baghdad all the way up to Syria. And we were doing it with obviously we had unlimited like air power, but we had limited ground resources and we were relying upon the Iraqi Shia militias, which were proxies of Iran. And so there was just so much going on. And because of that, and because the Iran was basically saving Iraq with their Shia militias, they were using that to fully, the Iraqi government was already a bit of a puppet government. And they were able to use that situation to solidify their hold on the Iraqi government. And so, but we still needed to use their ground assets and sources to help blunt the ISIS invasion. And we had to do all this stuff while working essentially with the Iranian government. So it was a very interesting time, both politically and tactically, if you will. B and I say, did you ever get to see or be involved with anything from SES E Squadron? Yes, as a matter of fact, I was. So E Squadron does kind of their thing, right? They are a separate squadron for a reason. I have heard other things recently that they might not either going to confirm or deny, but they may have been the squadron may have been have reabsorbed back down to the Saber squadrons. But sometimes this happens with their assets. Sometimes they have a full squadron. Sometimes they just take those capabilities and reabsorb them as assets of the Saber squadrons. But yeah, the Delta guys there, obviously they have some support intel guys, but they also have operators who do their first couple of years as an assaulter, and then when it comes time to go do something advanced past the assaulting, whether it's go recce, obviously one of the options is they go to the intel squadron. So it's really cool to see operators, Delta operators, have going through the intelligence squadron, because I can tell you from a guy is an intelligent focused profession, right? And it also, there's two things right here. So one of the things is it's kind of unique because they're really outside of ISA, there is no tier one intelligence guys, right? In every other unit, intelligence is support. So ISA is very unique because we send our operators out who are trained to a similar level to be of your tier one operators, right? We get the same pay as the tier one operators. We get, all these different things. So we're on that same level. So when we show up, right, for these intel guys and the support guys, we're the pinnacle of their profession, right? But then we're also intel guys, but the Delta guys and the dev crew guys look at us as like similar level, right? So when we go there and we do an intel, right, and we're bringing out devices and we're doing type of stuff, it's really cool. You'll have an operator who either is an E squadron or left E squadron and came back to one of the Saber squadrons and is like, hey, I worked with that. Oh, like I know exactly how to, the piece of equipment. Like, oh, I remember using this, right? And so what ends up doing is they understand the capabilities of intelligence better because they've had to go through the intelligence squadrons. And what ends up happening is not only do they have a better relationship with their intel guys, but they also stop asking for stupid requests like, hey, can you do this crazy like bounce RF energy off of a satellite off the dark side of the moon and pick up somebody's phone on the other side of this mountain? When you've got guys who've operational dudes who've worked these sort of types of intelligence, they have a better understanding and they stop asking for really stupid shit. So I hope that makes sense. And it's like a long-winded answer. But yeah. Yeah. let's see. Yeah. It's I love Ben. I wish he'd make more content. Talking about Ben Papas, right? Like you instead of the leadership. Uh yeah, he's like one of those guys. Like I every time I see Ben, like he's so intellectual, he's so good with the analysis, the intelligence, and he's so well spoken. Definitely somebody I look up to in this space of how I should convey information, because the way he does it, I just like when somebody's just not only do they you can tell they know what they're talking about, but the way that they convey it, it makes me want to listen to it. And definitely when Ben Pappas talks, I definitely want to hear more. So I definitely want to be better about that. So it is what it is. From Precious, do you think the Army should reinstate the Jedburgh teams and make them a new soft unit in JSOC? Also, do you think they should take recruits from both SF and MARSOC? Um, I don't think there's anything wrong with for reinstating Jedburgh teams. It's really interesting about these capabilities. They take them away, they put them back in, and usually when they take them away, they usually put them back in somewhere else. That's typically an American style, right? But I definitely think that combined Jedburgh teams between SF and MARSOC could definitely be something. Like it could be like an Army Marine thing. I think that would be kind of a cool thing. Just because the Raiders are in closest relation. They're kind of like this hybrid between SEALs and Green Berets. But I think that would actually be kind of a cool concept for Jedburgh teams to be a Army, SF, and Marine Raider thing, like together. Is Delta G Squadron better than ISA? I'm assuming you mean E Squadron because, and it's been a hot second, but G Squadron is their aviation squadron. E Squadron is their intelligence squadron. And it's possible I could be getting these backwards. It's been a hot second, and I am slightly retarded. But so they do different things, right? Is it awesome for intelligence operators or operatives to have a tactical background as good as a Delta operators? Absolutely. But having said that, even Delta's intelligence squadron, which when you combine all the resources and the awesome environment that is Delta Force, and you combine it into doing some cool intelligence, it's a great combination. But that squadron's mission is limited, right? They can only do missions that are within the scope of the unit, which is usually not as big as ISA. So ISA's mission, like Delta's intelligence squadron, is usually doing intelligence related to missions that the ISA or that Delta's doing directly. ISA not only does it support some JSOC units, it also is it's covering intelligence throughout the world, right? And a lot of intelligence is being in places before we need to be there. For example, let's take Venezuela and Maduro. There were intelligence operatives in Venezuela years prior to this operation, setting up for this operation, right? So Delta does not have the resources and the manpower to do everything that Delta does, and then also do the intelligence to support their mission specifically, and also go around the world and sit in places we don't need to be yet years in advance, right? They definitely do some of that, but they don't do it to the scale that ISA does, right? So think of it like how the CIA is in places already, just constantly doing operations. Obviously, ISA is like the military version of that. They're out there in places prior, right? That's probably one of the biggest differences, and I hope that helps and that makes sense. You should keep getting it on podcasts to tell your story. Once you know, people become a fan. Yeah. Well, if people invite me, to be honest, I haven't really reached out to anybody other than people that have reached out to me. I just haven't done that yet. I think the only person that I reached out to, and I'll tell you this, of all YouTubers in the world, I am a fangirl from one specific YouTuber, and he's not military. I did reach out in one email to let Chris Williamson. I think Chris Williamson is like the coolest, like modern day philosopher, one of the greatest modern day philosophers of our time. And I just am addicted to listening to Chris Williamson. If you have not listened to Chris Williamson, yeah, that's my boy. Like, that's my dream, right? Even more so than like Shawn Ryan, even Joe Rogan. Be on Chris Williamson's show is my dream, to sit and have a one-on-one conversation with that man. That's where I want to be. So what is your opinion of ISA versus Mossad? And also, what's your overall opinion of Israel? Are you for them or against them? Oh, man. What a loaded question. Oh. All right. Well, let's get into this. All right. So what's your overall opinion of Israel? All right. So if you've ever been to Israel, right, and you've dealt with the Israeli people in Israel, right? You've seen the Israeli military. You've worked alongside them. It's hard not to like them, right? Because when you meet, like, the Israeli people are so patriotic, right? And I say this, the Israel people who live in Israel, right? There is a difference between Jewish people who live in America versus Jewish people who live in Israel, right? It's a very different political spectrum. The people that live in Israel, they are so patriotic. Obviously, they have their conscription programs, and everybody has to serve. But because of that, right, one of the added benefits to a conscription, and also a country that has a conscription but also is very patriotic, is that everybody understands what you're doing. Like, when you're in the military, anybody you talk to, you can honestly automatically relate to, right? Unlike in the United States, which we are, people who serve in the military are 1% of the population. You think about that. For every 100 people you meet, only one person knows your experience. And that's very interesting, right? And then, Israel, if you try to look at things, and obviously you need to look at things from everybody's point of view, not just Israel's, but the people who don't like Israel. Israel does things for right or for wrong because they believe they are fighting for survival. They're under this existential threat. So they take things to a certain extent because they believe it's life or death, right? We, as the United States, don't have that threat, so we can operate within a certain we operate in a different core set of values, if that makes sense. Obviously, culturally, a little bit different, but also geopolitically, geographically, in a lot of different ways, we are awarded a lot of privileges that allow us to basically not do some of the things that Israel does that pisses people off, right? So I think that Israel has some good intentions, but Israel definitely, and I know this because I've dealt with Israeli intelligence services. I've done operations are in proximity or alongside them. And like all our allies, right? But Israel specifically, everybody needs to be watched like a hawk, right? We're friends now, right? And we probably will be friends for a long time. But I personally think I don't really trust anybody, and I definitely don't trust necessarily the Israeli intelligence service. Look, everybody spies on everybody. If you don't think that that's the case, You are sadly mistaken, and welcome to the real world, my friend. Everybody spies on everybody. We spy on everybody. They all spy on us, right? Washington D.C. is like the capital of the world of spies, right? Most countries, all their diplomats are spies, right? So DC, like everybody's doing intel on everybody, right? All the embassies here are doing intel on us. We're doing intel on them. They're doing intel on other people. It's just crazy, right? Like DC is it's kind of nuts when you really understand what's going on from an intelligence and a counterintelligence point of view. The city's fucking nuts. There's no other city in the world like this. Will I criticize for mistakes that Israel makes? Absolutely. I'm not afraid to do that, right? Do I think generally they do a lot of things that coincide with things that we want? Typically, right? But I definitely do think that they kind of overstep their bounds sometimes. And they have to remember that we're the big brother, and we need to put them in their place sometimes. Be like, hey, calm down. It's like a dog, easy, right? I'm not calling Israeli people dogs. All right, don't come at me. Don't clip that shit. But you know what I'm talking about. And then go back to your other question. What's your opinion of the ISA versus Mossad? This is a very similar conversation to ISA versus CIA. And I'll explain why. The biggest difference between the ISA and the CIA is authorities. ISA operates under the Department of Defense, or the artist formerly known as the Department of Defense, now is the Department of War. There is something that's known as Title 10 and Title 50 authorities. You guys can look them up. I'm not necessarily going to go into. Because I'll go off on a tangent. But the CIA has more leeway to do certain things that the military can never get away with. For example, if anybody knows, every Tuesday in the White House, there's a meeting where the president and a number of high cabinet officials get together with the intelligence agencies, and specifically the CIA, and they review a kill list. They do this every Tuesday or Thursday. I'm getting old. I think it's every Tuesday. This kill list is who the United States wants to eliminate. It is not handed to the military, and there is a reason for that. It is not given to Delta. It is not given to SEAL Team 6, because a lot of these people on the list, like, for example, Osama bin Laden, the military has the authorities to kill him, right? There are other people that we want to get rid of that the military does not have authorities to get rid of. The CIA can do that, right? So they have more authorities because for a number of different reasons, they have the access ability. Because of Israel's culture, because Israel believes in its existential crisis and has a stomach to commit operations that the United States might be a little, hey, we won't go that far. Israelis will do that, right? We as the United States military are one of the only militaries who actively will go out of our way to avoid civilian casualties. And I can draw a couple parallels to this, right? But Israel is not exactly, doesn't follow the same playbook, right? Because of their thoughts or their existential crisis or whatever you want to call it, right? They have more of an appetite or more acceptable to collateral damage, right? And I'll give you guys an example of this specifically, and I will compare England, the United Kingdom, and the United States during World War II. During World War II, the United States, one of the reasons why, if you guys know the movie The Memphis Belle, the B-24 Strato Fortresses, or the Super Fortresses, I think they were called, whatever, the B-24 bombers, they had a high casualty rate, right? It was really hard for them to do their 25 missions and they could go home, right? And one of the reasons why the casualties, or why so many B-24s were shot down, was because we were doing daylight raids. The British did not have this problem because they were doing nighttime raids. So why were we doing daytime raids and the British were doing nighttime raids? We were doing daytime raids because in order for us to minimize civilian casualties, with the technology, the bomb sites, and how we could see things, we needed to do daylight bombing raids. So we risked American lives to minimize the casualties of European citizens and German citizens while at it during the World War, again, the Second World War against Germany. England, because they had been bombed indiscriminately during the siege of London and the German Luftwaffe air campaign over London and the rest of England, didn't give a fuck. They're like, we're doing air nighttime and we're bombing the sites, and if we kill civilians in the process, okay, right? Because, you know, and so that's a parallel that, you know, like people from England might be like, oh, look at Israel. Like, hey, you did that. And there's a time that the Americans, right, were so pissed off and so, you know, had it with a certain enemy. They're like, fuck it. You know, fucking scorched earth, motherfucker, right? So because of that, right, and this is a very long-winded answer, the Mossad, being one of its agencies, right? It's not its only agency, but, you know, like you can draw some parallels between the CIA, you know, ISA, whatever. They are like an organization like the CIA that has more authorities, but even within their own government, in comparison, because even the CIA has some limits, right? Because it is an American institution and you still deal with the American culture, even though it is a subculture within that culture. The Mossad operates out of a different culture, and that's the Israeli culture, which has more of a stomach for doing stuff that even the CIA might be cautioned to do. So when you talk about American, like the CIA versus the Mossad, or the Mossad versus the ISA, the Mossad has probably more authorities to do stuff and get away and probably do whatever, despite collateral damage. Probably the only organization within the world that probably has more leeway and gives less fucks is probably the KGB. So the Mossad can basically do shit with the gloves off, right? So so they are a very effective organization, and they have been, you know, let's call it combat experience, right? You might call it something different for, you know, intelligence centric organizations, but we'll just call it combat experience. They have a lot of combat experience. And so it's, yeah, so that's what I would say when it comes to the Mossad and ISA and CIA. When you want to compare them, that's what you have to think about, is a lot of it is authorities and the culture and the stomach to do stuff. And the Mossad does a lot of shit, some stuff that we might not even do or would want to do. I appreciate your kind words about regular Marine line grunts. Simplify. Absolutely. Look, everybody's got look, I know that there's like, we're stuck in this soft centric fucking, the vet bro community is being led by the soft guys, but dude, in a lot of ways, soft guys had it easier, right? Like we like, yeah, maybe we went on harder missions, but a lot of times we were provided, especially during the GWAT, or the Global War on Terrorism. I had like pretty sweet setup. We were going on raids every single night, but I'd come home to my own room, my own phone, and we had our own cook, right, for a 12-man ODA team, right? It's like, and then you had all the like the Marines in like was it like Ramadi, and like the shit that was going on there. Like a lot of times the regular military actually had the situation worse. So we definitely need to have respect for everybody within the military, especially the normal line infantry, because at the height of the Iraq war, dude, they were doing so much of like the work and getting none of the recognition, and their life was not that great, right? So we definitely need to recognize, give credit due where it's deserved. I definitely think with the not just the normal Marine line infantry, but also the Army infantry line units. What do you think is a harder selection between SAS and SBS or Delta? I think SAS personally because of the jungle phase. I have not been. So, you know, this is a difficult question because it's like I've not. I know a bit about SAS and SBS selection, but when you have selections that are so modeled after each other, it's hard to determine which one is the best one unless you get somebody who objectively, without indicating their bias, would go to an SAS selection and then go to a Delta selection, and then him be like, "Hey, this is what I thought. Which one was harder?" They're probably so close in equivalency that it would be really hard for me even to say. And so I wish I could, but I will say that I do think that if anybody who's ever done land nav in West Virginia, it is a horrible, horrible fucking place to do land nav. Like, I thought I was good at land nav until I went to West Virginia. I was humbled very aggressively. I've heard of Delta's aviation asset before. Do they recruit from the 160th? Yes. They recruit from the 160th, and they also recruit from normal aviation within the Army. It is what can I say about what was formerly G Squadron, right? Am I getting this wrong? Am I getting it backwards? I'm going to look it up real quick. G Squadron versus E Squadron, right? I know that, like, it's not the first time that I've literally mixed them up, and I've literally been there, right? I think G Squadron is aviation. Oh, no, I have it backwards. I'm an idiot. See? Look. Wait. Let me double check. Okay. I fucked up earlier. I apologize. G Squadron is the aviation. I don't even know which one I said at this point. E Squadron is the aviation wing. So, yeah. So I will tell you, other than getting into it, the difference between the 160th and the aviation squadrons, because both green, blue, and orange, Delta, ISA, and SEAL Team 6, all have their own aviation units. But I will tell you the main difference between those three and the 160th is the 160th flies Army helicopters. The other three units' aviation wings do not fly U.S. military aircraft. So they're depending on the mission and the profile of the mission is whether or not Delta, like if Delta needs a mission that they're going to use military helicopters, like, say, for example, like you do in a mission like Maduro, they're going to use the 160th, right? But then if they need to do stuff that's, let's say, a little bit more clandestine, maybe riding in, let's just say, a Russian helicopter, right? You're going to be in one of the you're going to use that asset to the tier 1 aviation, like someone like E Squadron. So, have you ever worked with T Squadron from UKSF? I'm not exactly sure what T Squadron from the UKSF is, but we will look it up. Yeah, I don't know what T Squadron is. You'll have to tell me. So Lucas, when you get see this, does Dev Group Black do anything different than ISA? So this goes back to my conversation about G Squadron. Yes. So Black Squadron and G Squadron do something very similar, right? So remember, it's like it's a much so ISA is like a much larger organization, right? It's a full organization like Delta and Dev Group, right? They do an entire organization does the intelligence job, right? But because it's an entire organization, it does it all over the world for multiple different reasons, right? Black Squadron and G Squadron are individual squadrons inside of an organization, right? So they don't have the manpower to do what ISA does, right? So they have a different focus, right? G Squadron and Black Squadron do some operations, but most of them are focused on whatever Deltas or SEAL Team 6's missions are, right? So they're very focused on what their missions are. Delta has more of a strategic role in intelligence, and they go throughout the world, and then they go in places where we might need people prior, right? Like very similar to what the CIA does, right? To a certain extent. So if that makes sense, Deltas or G Squadron and Black Squadron are way more focused. My dog just moved my camera. So yeah, so I hope that helps. The reason I ask your opinion on Israel is because the hate for Israel is crazy online, and being in the military, I don't want to let dissuade me from doing things in my career. Look, I've said this before. There's Trump derangement syndrome and there's Israel derangement syndrome, right? Am I like, look, I don't believe that everybody does everything perfectly correctly, right? And if Israel does something I don't like, I'll definitely call it out. If Israel does something I like, I'll call it out. I got no problem, right? So I definitely think there is a bit of Israeli derangement syndrome. Like the thing that, look, when I've been at the intelligence level, I know how we feel about the Israelis and how we feel about the Israeli intelligence, right? And I can tell you from firsthand experience, like this, the one thing I think is so stupid is you'll hear is like, well, the Israel controls us. No, they do not. All right. Israel, even if they wish they could control us, they do not, right? Israel can't even compete with the CIA on its own, right? Like if there's an organization that's getting out of fucking hand in any country, it's the American CIA, right? I just that's a whole nother conversation. But trust me, Trump does Trump does whatever the fuck Trump wants to do. And that was actually one of the things that people were worried about when he was getting elected. They're like, oh, how can you trust a man? He doesn't listen to anybody, right? And the same people were like, oh, Israel controls it. Like, no, nobody controls this man. All right. I'm telling you. And trust me, Israel does not control us. Nobody controls us. All right. We only control ourselves, to be honest, but whatever it is. Do you think people with asthma would stand a chance on any soft section? I've never had asthma. I don't have any families ever had asthma. I will be completely honest. I am not that well versed in the limitations that asthma provides people because I've never been anybody who's ever been around it, right? So like my knowledge base, a lot of it, I try to be as knowledgeable as possible, but my knowledge base is, limited in certain factors. And I'll be honest, I don't really know that much about asthma, but if there's a waiver and you can get it, I don't see why not, right? Trust but verify. I think that might be the credo of this channel. Let's see. Israel has a massive history of documented spying cases in the U.S. among the things. Absolutely. And we catch them all the time. And we tell them, hey, stop doing that. They're like, oh, yeah, we'll stop doing it. We know they're not going to stop, So it is what it is. Rob or Matt, who do you think lied personally? Wow. I can tell you who I struggle. I think there's a lot going on here. I definitely think if I had to look, let me word this. If I the it's not who I, maybe this coincides with your question. The person I trust the least in this situation is Rob, right? Because of a number of different factors that for me, and what I understand of people when they, are not being completely honest, there are definitely some things that he are doing or which are trademark indications of somebody who's not 100% telling the truth. Is Matt Bissonette telling 100% the truth? I don't. I think that there's a little fabrication on both sides, but I definitely think, my personal opinion, I believe that Rob is fabricating more than Matt is, if that makes sense. But that's just based off of what I get. And also, it's very hard for me. If you ever watched a podcast with Rob O'Neill on it, it's really hard to listen to him because he constantly interrupts the person who's interviewing him. And it's really hard. And it's kind of like his brain's kind of all over the place, but it is what it is. Could he be telling the truth? Yeah, he could be, right? Could Matt Bissonette be telling the truth? Yeah. Could both of them be telling a version of their own truth of how they saw things? Like it's the thing is so stupid. The thing is just, it is a fucking distraction away from the real fucking things that these people should be fucking promoting, not who fucking actually had the first fucking shot into fucking Osama's head. It's so fucking stupid if you think about it. The fact that we're still talking about this, but it is what it is. Countries don't have friends; they only have interests. General de Gaulle, and that you're not wrong. Absolutely, it's yeah. Are CIA tier 0 groups better than tier 1 units such as Delta? So I think I've talked about this a little bit. This is a new one. This kind of goes back. This is similar. They can draw a similar parallel between the Mossad, CIA, and the ISA conversation, right? So the difference, because is Delta, okay, so if we're going to compare, right, the closest process, right, we're going to compare the CIA and Delta Force, but specifically we're going to compare Ground Branch, right? For anybody who doesn't know what Ground Branch is, Ground Branch is the paramilitary wing of the CIA, right? If you think about your CIA Black Ops, that's your Ground Branch guys, right? And this is different than your GRS, which is a global regional support. These are your transport guys, right? This is your security service for your case officers. Ground Branch pulls guys from tier 1 units, also pulls people from tier 2 units, right? Is Ground Branch as big of an organization within the CIA as Delta Force? It is not. Does pound for pound, does Delta have better shooters than Ground Branch? I would say so, just because all of them are tier 1 guys and they train at the highest level of the tier 1 guys, right? But the thing that Ground Branch, and definitely Ground Branch is very close in its shooting level, right? Like to the point where it's probably equal or very close enough. The one thing that Ground Branch has that Delta does not have is authorities. Ground Branch gets to go on missions that Delta doesn't get to go on. And because of that, they actually have more real life, like, well, not necessarily, but like it's Ground Branch gets to do shit Delta doesn't get to do, right? And we all the time. So for somebody like for me, I was in the tactical detachment in ISA. When I got there, my detachment sergeant major went to Ground Branch. And when I caught up with him a few years later, he told me, hey, I was like, what's it like over there? And he was like, well, I'm actually kind of like, obviously was helping set up so we all could go there once we were done with ISA. And he was like, hey, man, we finally get to do all the things we wanted to do, right? And what he was talking about was authorities, because all the time we set up all these missions and we go on all these targets, and we track these targets, and we get there and we don't get permission from the Department of Defense. And because we may lack the authorities, or a certain person decided not to take the risk. The CIA doesn't deal with that as much. Ground Branch doesn't sue. So it was common for our guys to go there, and then finally all the red tape that we had to deal with on our missions, that red tape wasn't really there. And then we definitely got to go on more missions in Ground Branch than they did in ISA. So that was a very common thing. And you'll hear that from Delta guys as well, SEAL Team 6 guys, all our soft guys who go from whatever soft unit, and then they go to Ground Branch, and they just, yeah, the level of authorities, or the lack of red tape, is unmatched in a tactical unit than it is a Ground Branch, more so than Delta and SEAL Team 6. What's your thoughts on Russian soft group like Alpha Group? Well, I think just in general, we are very disappointed with the Russian military, right? We thought higher of them, and they go into Ukraine and they just how the mighty have fallen. Would you say ISA took inspiration from British Det 14 Intel company that operate in Northern? No, not really. So when there's a reason why, so the British Det 14 and all the British intelligence service is very compartmentalized, right? It's like everybody's got a piece and everybody works together, right? The ISA was modeled after two organizations, which is Delta Force and the CIA. And the CIA does not compartmentalize shit. What they do is they take all the capabilities that everybody else has, and then they grow them organically. Now, CIA has turned into this amalgamation of a unit or organization that does everything. It does everything the NSA does to a certain extent, right? All these different things, right? It does tactical stuff. It does SIGINT. It does HUMINT. It does everything, right? So ISA was designed to be the Army's version of the CIA. And to the point where when the SRR was created, which the British SRR, they actually looked at ISA to sort of look as a model, but they couldn't do what ISA does because of how the British intelligence soft ecosystem is set up, because everything is so compartmentalized. ISA, like Delta, like CIA, does a lot of so many different things, whether it's reconnaissance, clandestine intelligence, tactical stuff, right? These British units that we're talking about, Det 14, SRR, wouldn't be able to do that, right? Just because it's a different system. The Americans went about it a different way. And so you have specialists versus you have all these organizations that do multiple different things. They have a focus, but there's a lot of redundancy and crossover with a lot of units, like RRC, Delta, all the tier ones have a lot of bleed over, if you will. So, yeah. Would you say conventional guys had it harder? Did you watch IED threats and say IEDs were the number one threat? I would say, I sort of answered this question. I know it's taking me a second to get to all these questions, but yes, I would say that the infantry, the normal armed infantry, and the Marines infantry had it way worse, right? Because not only were their living conditions worse, right? They didn't have the same level of support as the soft guys, right? So when they got into fucking ticks and they got into fucking combat, they had less resources, right, to help them, right? And they got put in a lot shittier situations. They had to go after fucking lower targets and with less fucking support. So yeah, they had to do the fucking literally grunt, call it fucking grunt work for a fucking reason, right? And I have nothing but mad respect for not only the regular Army infantry, the Marine infantry, but also even the MPs, because when the infantry was getting overtaxed, the MPs had to come in and help pick up the slack from the infantry doing like house to house stuff and everything like that. So all of them. Yeah, so in both Black Squadron and G Squadron, and obviously in ISA, all of them have female operatives. right? Which is different than the operators themselves, right? And that's because women, especially when you're dealing with the Middle East, women have access to it. Just in general, women have access to places that men cannot get to, right? And they are definitely an asset. And I can tell you that female operatives, especially in the intelligence role of things, are very, very useful, right? They are very useful. Can someone join the military and get into RRC? Not directly in the military. It's like most tier 1 units. You can't come directly into a tier 1 unit. Like ISA, you have to be somewhere else. Delta, you have to be somewhere else. SEAL Team 6, you have to already be a SEAL. RRC, you already have to be a Ranger. Hey, the Reaper himself. What's up, brother? Oh man, bro, we are in the presence of greatness. The Reaper himself is in the chat, baby. That's what's up, man. Man, that's giving me a high that I didn't even know I had. I appreciate that. Oh man, the coolest sniper in the world, plus the coolest name, right? If you were ever going to be a sniper, right, to be called the Reaper, bro, that's so cool. Like when I started getting into social media, and to be on, actually even before I got into social media, when I started listening to people, I honestly did not listen to a lot of people on soft, just because I wasn't really the biggest fan. But anybody who doesn't know, like, so the Reaper is Nick Irving, right? Probably know he's like the black sniper, super cool. But always listening to his like short videos, I was like, you could tell this man not only says he is what he is, but actually did some shit. And I love the way that he portrays things. So always find it entertaining. So Nick, love to have you, brother. Can you? I think I just got lost here a second. There are some videos circulating online of Israel military stopping an ambulance from passing checkpoints and keeping them for 20 minutes. I haven't seen it, so I can't really necessarily comment on it. But does the Israeli military do things, or the Israeli intelligence service that do things that definitely other people are going to question? Absolutely. Is there reasoning for that? Well, they have their reasoning. Is it justified? That's the question, right? Are the people that are going against, conducting operations in ambulances, right? We already know that people that Hamas in Palestine and the Gaza Strip will intentionally put their munitions inside hospitals. So if we attack hospitals to get their weapons, obviously we kill people, right? So does it, maybe they're putting stuff in these ambulances, and that's why now they have to search these ambulances. I'm not 100% saying that is the case, but that's definitely something I would think about in this situation. Is this also something that's going on? Different skills and different measures and budget, like most soft units. I believe sections have similar people. Yeah. So I'm assuming we're talking about ISA versus Black Squadron and G Squadron. It's, you have one entire organization that does it versus two units that have one squadron each that does it, right? And it's did you see Tucker's podcast with Steve Baker a month ago? Claims to have a video of ISA on the ground on January 6th. I can tell you that there was if there was an ISA person, look, ISA does not do operations inside the United States. Trust me, right? We don't. We don't have the we don't have the authorities, nor does anybody have the time to do that bullshit. I'm telling you, we don't do shit inside the United States. So if there was somebody January 6th and he was an ISA person, not there because of the unit. And plus, how would you even know it's an ISA person? Yeah. Do you agree with what Edward Snowden did? I definitely think that we have agencies and portions of the government that overstep their bounds. I have seen it firsthand. I have probably even been a part of it at one point, right? And I definitely think that one of the greatest parts about the American is people are not afraid to call their fucking government out. And you always should, because if you don't, that's when the government will go off the fucking rails and then turn into something that it shouldn't be, right? And I think that there's even, and look, I love the CIA, but there's a conversation that the CIA has evolved into this organization that has too much authorities, that does too much, and people are afraid to fucking put them in their fucking place. So, you know. Do you think the UFOs, UAPs are actually government projects that are confined to special access programs? And do you think POTUS has access to SAPs? Look, everything, just because you have the highest security clearance does not mean you have access to all the information. Everything is compartmentalized. So if there's a program, they even know you could have the highest clearance, you may never know about it, because unless you're involved with it and you have a need to know, you're not going to know about it, right? And is there situations where the president, I don't know this for sure, right? Is there a situation for the president to not have someone may deem in one of these agencies that he doesn't have a need to know? It's possible. So, but there's a lot of SAP programs. There's a lot of, but it's all compartmentalized. So even for me, who was at an intersection of a lot of stuff, there's a lot of shit that I would never, ever be involved in because I didn't have the need to know. Hey, Jean-Pierre with the $10. Hey, appreciate you, brother. Listen to Curacao. CIA seems a lot more cowboyish when it comes to tactics versus DOD personnel being rehearsed and doctrinal by nature. Different sleds aren't pulled by the same dog, so to speak. It's a very different place, right? Because they have different rules. So they don't have to go about the same. Like they don't deal with normal Army bullshit, right? Even Delta Force has to, at some level, have to deal with Army bullshit, right? Because you're still part of the Army. You still have to get promoted within the Army. Like there's a whole bunch of shit. And so it's just a different organization, different authorities, different culture, different attitude. How do you feel about Curacao? I think John Curacao's videos are some of the most entertaining videos on all of fucking YouTube, right? Because one, this guy got fucked over by the CIA. One had a super long career in the CIA and got fucked over. Trust me, organizations you worked for years can turn on a dime and try to fuck you. I know that when I started my YouTube channel, when I wasn't even naming what tier 1 unit it was in, ISA came for me, right? And so the unit I worked for tried to fuck me. So I understand the CIA, but the CIA sent him to jail, right? And so I understand that he's got a story to tell and he has no fucking loyalty to the fucking CIA. I get it. I think his shit is entertaining. And you can tell that this man does exactly what he says because the shit is so fucking detailed and he has so many fucking stories and he's so good at telling these stories. I absolutely love listening. And almost anytime that, unless I haven't already seen that particular video, I almost never swipe away John Curacao content. I think that shit is hilarious. Bro, never seen the movie Kingdom when they use the ambulance, right? So look, yeah, The Kingdom was actually a good movie. Have you seen The Lioness? And is there some truth to them having women's programs? They definitely have women's programs. I've not seen The Lioness yet. We already talked about this earlier, but I'm going to. It's going to be on my list. We're going to watch it next week. And next week, we're going to talk about The Lioness. So next Monday, live, we're going to talk about The Lioness. We're about to cut this live here short. Or not necessarily short, but we're an hour and a half. I see the temperature gauge rising on my camera. So you guys know what that means. I think Curacao is pronounced Kiraku. I like Curacao. I think Curacao sounds better than Kiraku. Right? And look, I'm just a dumb American who struggles with accents, so it is what it is. It's John Curacao as far as I'm concerned. But it might be, right? But every time that I think I've heard it, it's John Curacao, plus I like the way that it sounds better. So, all right. So I think we're going to go ahead and call it. We're going to do live. I got to do the videos for the week. And then next week, so In about 2 weeks, part two of the Special Forces selection ranking is going to come out. And we have about 15 units on that one. And we have another 15 units in part 3 as of right now. So that will be out 2 weeks. So basically, you can expect an episode of the Special Forces tier ranking system once a month. Right? So we'll do episode 2. We'll be out in about 2 weeks. Episode 3 will be out about a month and a half. And then depending on how well episode 2 and episode 3 do, and if there's an appetite for like an episode 4, like an episode 4 being like we just do adversaries, like Russia, China, North Korea, going to stuff like that. Going back to mental health, do you think talking about it will make future operators hesitant on joining, knowing the impact the job will have? No, I don't think so. I think that just being more honest about everything that's going on. Look, everything is about managing expectations. If you understand, and that's one of the reasons why I like to talk about everything that goes on as much as I can without divulging any like sensitive or classified information, is because the more you know, the better you are prepared to deal with the bullshit that's going to happen, right? So if you are letting everybody know, like, hey, this is something, people can be more mentally prepared for it. And I think that's a win-win situation. And you really can't get that wrong, right? And if you're the type of person who I was like, hey, this shit is so hard, it's gonna be mentally like it's gonna be mentally taxing, right? Then you don't deserve to be there anyways, right? Because we are looking for the hardest people, both physically and mentally. But the difference is if it's such something that we talk about so much that it eventually becomes accepted culturally as something that we can talk about. Like when we get back from an operation, that tier 1 operation, like, hey, bro, how's your physical health? All right, cool. How's your mental health, bro? You feeling bad? Like once you get to the point where we can talk about it like that, bro, I tell you, this shit will be a thing of the past. I think will be for the best, honestly. Yeah, I know. Well, you know what? I should have checked to see, since I've been talking so much, shit about, Israel and the Mossad. I should have made sure whether or not my camera came from Israel, because you know how they like to blow shit up. They blew those pagers up, and you never know. If I talk enough shit, that's why I'm careful, right? Mossad might blow up my camera. It's possible. So, do I live in fear? Absolutely. Not really, because I don't really care. But it is funny though. Do you think they would choose pilots 1/60th instead of ATO EC spray? It depends. Look, they get their pilots from multiple different locations and multiple different sources. Do you think UK Special Forces support group is more comparable to 75th Rangers than the RRC? Let me just double check which one. It's probably closer to something, yeah, like the 75th and the RRC. Who would say outside the US has the best military in total? Well, that's actually a harder question than you think it is. Because look, if you're talking about overall militaries, Russia's been a disappointment. England's overall military is just so small. Like they're definitely the highlights of the British system is actually their special operations, their intelligence, but their normal military is not what it used to be. Probably China is probably next best, but they're kind of a ways behind in a lot of different ways. What do you think about Israeli special forces? I've talked about this already. Like Israeli Israelis are in a culture, they're very effective because they get a lot of real world experience, and their culture, they have less bureaucratic red tape, and they get to do more stuff, and they have more authorities than a lot of the American equivalent organizations. Plan, prayer, execute, break everything down, and digest one time. That's helped my mental health. Absolutely. Sorry, meant for stay for Neptune Spirit. And do you know anything about the Stealth Hawks? It was an experimental program, and then they used them for that operation. They're obviously going to be constantly doing experimental stuff on new airframes, and they're trying all sorts of new things. And occasionally they use their prototypes for new missions, and occasionally they don't, or maybe you just never hear about them, right? Or nobody wrote a book about it. So there's stuff being going on. France SOF heavily operates in the Africa region. Well, it's because they've got a lot of former colonies there. What do you think has the weakest army in NATO in terms of the quality of their personnel? I'll tell you who does not probably. Well, look, there's so many countries that are very, like, overall Europe is very weak militarily, but certain countries are obviously weaker, like countries like Portugal and things like that. Obviously, you can pick any of the smaller countries, and the ones who are, for lack of better terms, more liberal, right? Poland's military is fucking growing hard, right? And there's a lot of things like Germany is up in their game. Everybody's like a lot of growing, but Germany is definitely probably one of the stronger ones just because they have a larger nation. But Poland, pound for pound, is probably growing its military harder and stronger. And plus the Polish Grom, talk about some fucking European badasses who fucking like Sons of Anarchy turned soft operators. Why not just get a new camera? Does Israel control you and make you use their camera? Look, I either will not confirm nor deny whether or not Israel controls me. Just please don't blow up my camera. That's all I ask. What's your opinion on the French Foreign Legion's commando units? So this has actually been addressed by, if anybody knows the former Navy SEAL who turned French Foreign Legion, Tyler, he's actually talked about this in the last episode, actually with Nick Irving and Jay Dolores, the Green Beret Chronicles and the Reaper, in their podcast, the Black Ops. He actually addresses this, that the French Foreign Legion is essentially just a normal army unit, and they've got some specialization within that thing, but it's nothing really anything. The French Foreign Legion is not a soft unit. Why does the U.S. not use shock troops when France uses the Britain uses the parachute regiment? We do have shock troops, right? Well, first of all, what does the term shock troop means, right? It means different things in different countries, right? Shock troops could be our airborne divisions, 82nd, 101st, right? Or how about the Rangers, which is an advanced elite, they operate in larger units than like your SEALs, your Green Berets do. And they're, essentially do airfield seizures, right? That the Rangers could be shock troops, right? So it all depends what you mean. Hey, what's up, Charlie? Mini Adventure, bro. I haven't seen you in a hot second. Good to see you from Berlin. Will coming, baby. So, God, I love Germany. I miss Germany. Miss the food. I love German food. So, anyways, how many Russian-speaking immigrants are serving in U.S. SOCOM? Well, so there's a number of people who grew up in Russia who probably work in SOF, but then most of them are Americans who learned Russian through either the military intelligence programs, college, or whether it's DLI or the language programs outside of in the Q course. It's impossible to make Joe laugh. He's all about business. If he laughs, his Mossad handlers will shock him like a dog or blow up his camera. Look, you guys need to get me off this fucking subject because, look, if you guys don't see me on Monday, it's because you guys keep bringing this shit up, right? I'm not I'm not supposed to talk about my Israel handlers. Okay, it's just it is what it is. All right, just leave it alone. Not cool, bro. Not cool. Do you know that SAS invented grenades? Bro, the SAS, in my opinion, probably invented everything. I don't think they invented grenades. Actually, who did invent the grenade? That's a good question. Who invented the grenade? All right, what country do you guys think invented the grenade? So no single person invented the grenade, as it have evolved over hundreds of years from ancient incendiary weapons. However, British engineer Sir William Mills invented the first modern, safe fragmentation hand grenade known as the Mills bomb in 1915, which is prior to the SAS. The SAS was not created until like the 40s, I think, right, during World War II. So yeah. Are there any units you've interacted with that nobody knows about? Yes. But there are certain things that I am under a number of NDAs. And let's just say there are a few organizations that I have worked with that I've never talked about on here that I am under NDAs that I cannot discuss. So there are some. Yeah. Lee Diamond Dog is, if you can't tell, is our resident Frenchman in this chat. Yeah, they can go for commander groups, but they're still not soft, right? It's just like, do you have like within a normal infantry unit, you might have some like a detachment or something like that that's slightly like your prize thing, right? It is what it is. So I'd probably say Chinese. The SS made the flashbang, my bad. Well, probably. Did you know that Roger Masinga was in Epstein files? He had ties to Mexican drug dealers and yes, I did hear that actually. And everything that I know about Richard Marcinko does not surprise me. He was not known to be the man of highest character, and for him to be the father of SEAL Team 6 with everything that's going on nowadays is kind of like, all right, I kind of get it. I see the path. I see how this went, right? Versus if you look at the difference of character of Charlie Beckwith versus Richard Marcinko, and I might be saying his last name incorrectly since I apparently say everybody's last name incorrectly. It is, yeah. Joe's microphone is a Mossad ballistic device, like the Charlie Kirk mic. One wrong move and it's over. So on that note, we're gonna call it. This is the end of the stream because I actually have a new dog. He's actually sitting by my feet. I don't know if you guys want to see him. Yeah, I don't think anyone wants to move right now. But yeah, so we're gonna call it. I'm pretty sure this thing's gonna shut off here anytime soon. But good thing is we've made an hour and 35 minutes, have not ran out of battery or temperature. Right, but I see the temperature light on the camera. It's been on there like 30 minutes. Do dead hand nuclear launchers prevent military invention, as in North Korea? There's a lot of things that prevent nuclear launches in North Korea, and to be honest, one of the things that is the guy who's in charge, Kim Jong-un, right? I believe that's the name of the current guy. He likes his life. He's got a good life. He gets to do whatever he wants. Everybody kisses his ass in every single way. And to do anything, like there's a bit of a deterrence because his life is so good. If he tries to do anything, he's going to get smacked down. And plus China doesn't want him to do anything. So I like to compare myself to Charlie Beckwith. I'm renowned for my humility, obviously. The legendary Stoic himself, baby. So All right, let me see if he'll come up here. Let me see if I can grab him. All right, so everybody who knows, my dog Callie passed away on New Year's, and we got a new one. It's also a pit bull. Everybody, I'd like you to meet. Here, let's take these off. I don't need these. I'd like everybody to meet. This is Toro. He is a 7-month-old puppy. You say hi. This is his first podcast. He's a little shy, right? But he's a very good boy. We rescued him from the Fairfax rescue shelter. He came from an abused home, but now he is living life with horses. And he's been hanging out with me at Polo, and he actually really likes the horses. Probably too much. He's started eating horse poop, but so it is what it is. All right. So we're going to call it. I'm going to take him for a walk. Luckily, we live on a farm, so we get to go right outside and see horses. And so we're going to be good. So I will talk to you guys later. Future Cairo K9 fighter. Love it. All right. I appreciate all you guys, and you guys have a lovely evening. I will see you on next live will be on Friday, and then next live on Monday.